Does God dwell with humans?
So to understand this topic, keep watching till the end, and also don't forget to subscribe.
We humans think that, since we are unholy and God is so holy, so he requires a separate place to dwell, and these sacred places are known as temples, churches, etc., and we visit these places only at our discretion. If this is so, then why did King David said that the Lord is my inheritance, in the book of Psalms?
Of course, we all know that every biological father would wish to live with his children, which is agreeable.
It is an immense pleasure for any parents to have their children with them, even in their old ages.
Friends, think if this is the situation of the worldly parents, then what about our Heavenly Father? Isn't it a human thing to live in community?
God created us in his own likeness. If we can't live alone, then it's obvious that he too can't live alone.
Then why in some places of Old Testament did God left humans, like in Jeremiah chapter 23 verse 11 and also in Psalms chapter 78 verse 60 and 69? It is clear that God will not dwell in unclean places. In Old Testament, King David wanted to build the temple for God, to which God says that his structure is big, vast, giant, such that his throne is heaven and his footstool is earth.
So one could imagine, how can a temple be built to place God in it, cause he is very huge? Now here, the reason of David's thought was the ark of God, which was used to place in tents, and David wanted to place this ark of God from tent to temple.
In 2 Samuel chapter 7 verse 6, I have not lived in a house since the day I brought up the people of Israel from Egypt to this day, but I have been moving about in a tent for my dwelling. So, here we understood that God was not living in temple, but was in tents. And God ordered David to not build temple, as his hands were blooded.
So later, this task was assigned to King Solomon, the son of King David, to build a temple, for the honor to God.
Also in 2 Samuel chapter 7 verse 13, he shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. And King Solomon built it in 7 years. Though he built a temple for God, he himself said that it is not enough for God to rest in this because heavens are not wide enough to be his resting place. They built it so that God's presence can be felt there.
Let us see in Chronicles chapter 2, verse 6, but who is able to build him a house, since heaven, even highest heaven, cannot contain him? Who am I to build a house for him, except as a place to make offerings before him? Now, by this we understood that God will not dwell in man-made places, since God is spirit.
In Psalm chapter 4 verse 24, God is spirit, then let his worshippers give him worship, in the true way of the Spirit.
He would like to dwell in our hearts, and we are his holy temple. Worshipping God means doing his work wholeheartedly. Now you may ask, what are these works? Well, we will discuss about this next time in some other videos. But for now, let us understand this topic carefully. We are a part of God and came from God, but the reality is, do we live for God?
In 1 Chronicles chapter 22 verse 14, with great pains I have provided for the house of the Lord 100,000 talents of gold, 1,000,000 talents of silver, and bronze and iron beyond weighing, for there is so much of it, timber and stone too, I have provided. To these you must add.
Ephesians chapter 2 verse 22, in whom you, with the rest, are united together as a living place of God. In this point, we are being united together as a living place for God. In other words, those who are working together to fulfill God's will are building a spiritual place for God. When Jesus visits the temple in Jerusalem, he saw that the place was turned into a business center. People were making all sorts of businesses with the support of temple priests. After looking this, Jesus got angry and he expels the merchants and consumers from the temple, accusing them of turning the temple into a den of thieves through their commercial activities. The reason of his anger was the cruelty of people who turned the worshiping place into a business center. Instead of having God's words in their hearts, it was filled with money and business. We are a dwelling place for God. Let us see how.
In 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 16, what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said, I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And also in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 16, do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? God never gave importance to man-made temples, but it is our hearts which should be placed for Him, inviting Him to come in.
It is the power only which can bear another power in it. In the same way, it is the Spirit which bear another Spirit in it.
Also in Isaiah chapter 6 verse 3, the whole universe is full of His glory. Then what about us? Are we not God's glory? Do we have His love, patience, peace? Do we forgive others? Are we enough able to glorify God and do His works?
Remember, as soon as God left the place, our adversary occupies it.
In Ezekiel chapter 8 verse 6, and he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing, the great abominations that the house of Israel are committing here, to drive me far from my sanctuary? But you will see still greater abominations. When an unholy thing happens like those that are given in Galatians chapter 5 verse 19 to 21, sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these, if found in man, then God will leave that place and another spirit, which is evil and sensual, will claim over it. In Revelation chapter 3 verse 20, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him, and he with me. So, dear brothers and sisters, let us all give our hearts as a dwelling place to God and follow Him with righteousness.
Glorify Him through this body by doing His work. Our fruits will be greater in heaven.